Hey, good afternoon and good evening. Do not adjust your screens. It is not Sunday morning. Hey, but we're back. ATW's back. I'm your host, Tony Twist, joined by big friend of the show. He's going to be helping us out for a little while. You guys know him, Sammy Kiss, Wildkat Sports. What's up, Sammy?
How you doing, man? How you been?
Been doing good, man. It's been a while since we had you on the show. I think you came on for a Halloween episode where we had yeah. We had we had a gentleman out of New York. He does a great Iron Sheik, and we had a Ghost of Macho Man. If you didn't see that show, it was freaking hilarious. We had a couple other guests on the show, but yeah, it's been a little while, man. What have you been up to?
I've been I've been so busy. Yeah, that guy, the Iron Sheik. I remember a few months ago when Sheik passed. I know a lot of guys were hitting him up, talking to him about the situation, and he was actually a pretty cool guy in terms of like trying to not make, like it would be easy to make light of it, but he was trying to kind of, be positive and show like why he'd become such a beloved person because of his outrageousness even over the last few years. So that was really cool. But I mean, gosh, so last year, a lot of things, been picking up, Wildkat Sports, we've, getting bigger and better. I've got a few things kind of in the pipeline. I know I told you about that. Some big things coming, but just busy as is the nature of the beast in this business, man.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, big shout out to you, Sammy. I know you're working on something. You're a busy man. We got you on the show at least before you go to WWE or AEW, and then you don't call us back, right?
Hey, man, if the sky's the limit, I'm always shooting for the stars, but I'll always be willing to come on here and talk about wrestling. I love pro wrestling. I think that's why anyone, whether you're doing a podcast, whether you're in the business or just a fan of the business, it's a business built on love, and that's why, never can get enough of coming on here and just talking about pro wrestling, man.
Well, I appreciate that, Sammy. But hey, shit, we haven't done a show. I mean, I pretty much took the whole summer off. Needed to kind of regroup. I had, if you're caught our last few episodes, LEG was helping us out. She helps me out with a lot of things behind the scenes, but she wanted to jump in for a little while. She could jump on once in a while, but we were just kind of trying some new things out. We got a lot of shit to talk about. It seems like we left the planet because all of the different news that's happened as of recently. CM Punk gets fired. WWE and UFC have now officially merged to make the TKO. AEW, a lot of crazy shit going on over there. WWE, it's a fun time to be a fan. It's a little nerve-wracking too. New shit happening, with WWE. Sammy, I want to get into all of that with you.
For sure,
but let's jump with our guest. Gino Rivera is an indie wrestler coming up on the scene. He's got a huge match coming up for Prescott Pro Wrestling. He's going to tell you all about it. We got Gino, Told You So Rivera. Welcome to ATW All Things Wrestling Podcast. How you doing, man?
I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be busier. Life is great, and I'm truly excited, man, just about life in general.
Well, Gino, welcome to the show, man. Appreciate you coming on. Are you out of New Mexico?
I am right now. Currently, I live in New Mexico. I run my own school, Off the Ropes Pro Wrestling, in New Mexico, but I am an LA guy. Yes, I train at Santino Bros Wrestling in Los Angeles.
Right. We've had a lot of guys on from the LA scene, and I'm in Arizona, so I'm right in the middle between LA and New Mexico. But the indie scene, I think, is really starting to kind of come on here, and Sammy could speak to this, but the pandemic hurt some of the indie promotions here in Arizona, and I think they're all kind of starting to come back a little bit. I went to a show, I think it was a year ago when Prescott Pro Wrestling had a show. I had never been to an indie show my whole life, millions of WWE shows. I haven't been to an AEW show, ECW back in the day, WCW. So it was my first taste of an indie show, and I had a blast. My son had a blast. It was just a whole different feel. So tell us how you got started, man, in the industry, and tell us all about your school as well.
Absolutely. So I got started in 2008 in Los Angeles. I was trying to go and attend a WWE show, and I was crossing the crosswalk, I got this flyer, and it was like, with a bunch of like guys without their shirts, and I'm like, I don't want to freaking go to the strip club. What the hell is this? And I threw it on the ground like any other person would. Go into the show, I come back out, I get that same flyer, and I'm like, dude, I don't want your flyer. I'm not into strippers. I'm okay, man. And they're like, it's pro wrestling, dude. Look at the flyer.
Right.
Look at the flyer, turn around, and says, do you have what it takes to be a pro wrestler? Santino Bros, contact this. And the next day, that is exactly what I did. And 15 years later, I'm still here now running my own school, passing out those same type of flyers with 22 kids
Right.
training under my umbrella. So I love it. This is definitely what I wanted in the wrestling industry.
That is awesome. Santino brothers, big fan of those guys. Sammy, being in the industry yourself, Santino brothers, I mean, that's probably the biggest name on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Well, definitely. One of my jobs at Wildkat Sports that I kind of welcome in people that are coming in looking to sign up for schools. We get kids that come looking to sign up to be pro wrestlers, almost every practice, if not at least every week. I don't think anybody that watches pro wrestling doesn't at some point think that they want to get involved and become a pro wrestler. I think that's the dream that everyone who loves wrestling is, right? And I've got this standard speech, so where when people come in, I always kind of put over Wildkat Sports as being one of a list. Like, there are a lot of wrestling schools in the country, but there aren't a lot of wrestling schools that I would call are really legitimate schools where you'll learn the basics, learn your craft the right way. And the right way I always think of as being you're a safe worker and you can work with anybody in the country, that sort of approach. And I always reference Santino's brothers as being one of those schools that, like it's, we're here in Louisiana, like if you live on the West Coast, as being one of those strong examples of a school that like they'll teach you everything the right way and they won't, you're not getting gypped, you're not getting robbed. If you make it there, you have a good fundamental. So can't say enough good things about Santino's brothers. And I imagine, that you bring that same kind of work ethic or expectation to your own school.
Yes, absolutely. It's the same handbook, same playbook that my trainer, Joey Chaos, which is funny thing that you say, you're from Wildkat, right?
Yeah.
So Altar Boy, does that ring a name?
Altar Boy.
Man,
it's weird. So we'll get, when we get some kids come in, we always tell them, you got to start eating right. You got to start working out. You got to start training. And some guys come in and they look like they weigh like 120, 150 pounds, skinny kids. And they'll look at you like, man, I'm never going to look like that guy. I'm never going to look like big. And they will point at Luke Hawks and go like, I'm never going to look like that guy. And I have to be like, okay, hold on.
Let me tell you.
That guy's a mountain.
Not only that, let me tell you how small of a business, how small of a world this is. Luke Hawks and Joey Chaos are literally brothers for life. And Joey Chaos was in the XPW. Some of you may not be familiar with that, but it's basically the West Coast ECW under Rob Black. Yeah. And Luke had a very good stint in that company along with Joey Chaos. So there's a little connection there. And I actually saw Luke Hawks. The last time I seen him was in 2010 or 11. That was a long time ago. But it's just a small world, man.
Yeah, and if we haven't buried the lead, Luke Hawks is the owner and founder of Wildkat Sports.
Yeah.
He started our school here in New Orleans, wanting to bring wrestling. Again, putting over you guys, put on the West Coast, Santino's brothers, having a solid foundation, in the South where people can learn their craft. Because there are people all over the country that want to learn how to be pro wrestlers.
Oh, yeah.
It's good to have a school in every location so that people can learn their craft safely and learn it the right way.
Absolutely agreed.
Well, Gino, so tell me how you I know because they haven't been around that long, so the Press Kit Pro Wrestling. So did you hook up with Ryan somehow at a show somewhere else and you say, hey man, we want you to come to Arizona? Have you ever wrestled in Arizona before?
I used to beat the tar out of Ryan Morales for about 2 years straight. I would beat that man within an inch of his life, man. Like me and Ryan have worked together, wrestled against each other, have been each other's faces, we've done everything you could imagine. Tagged. I think there's just been a lot of history with me and Ryan from California to Arizona. I used to wrestle in Arizona all the time, but I do what any other wrestler should do, and I travel often. And I feel when you are in an area where you cannot get any higher, when you've reached the ceiling, it's time to go start a new fire somewhere else. So that's what I do. Once I've wrestled in the main event, wrestled all the top guys, captured a few titles, ran a few good storylines, I'm looking for another place to go. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've started fires in Utah, Wisconsin, Washington, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Oklahoma, you name it, Baltimore, just everywhere. And that's what I believe a true wrestler should do. Is you're a journeyman, you need to travel. So that's what I instill in my guys. But as far as Ryan, he's a great guy. He approached me and he said, I need a main event, and if there's anybody that can do business, it's Gino Rivera. And without a shadow of a doubt, I can. And I accepted it. I said, hell yeah, I'll be there. Who's my opponent? Didn't find out for a couple of days until I saw the flyer, and I said, I know this guy. I remember when he was first getting started in the industry. I rubbed shoulders with the guy, and he stopped me after my main event against a guy named EJ Sparks, and he said, man, that was a great match, man. You're great. You're awesome. And I wonder if he still has that same respect for me today. Will he have that same respect for me in our match? I hope. If not, I'm going to have to stomp it into him.
Well, hey, man, I'm excited for that. Chris Bay of the Bullet Club, Gino Rivera, I'm going to be there live, so I'll be definitely checking out the match. So now you said you've known Chris for a long time, but have you wrestled him before recently?
Nope. This is our first meeting and probably his last. I don't know if Bullet Club's going to want him back after this. I don't know if Bullet Club's going to try to recruit me, which I'll definitely decline because I'm a solo dolo guy. I don't need a clique. I don't need a group. But Chris Bay, I take pleasure. This is a chance for me to step up to the plate and make a name for myself at his expense, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. If you think I'm going to travel all the way to Arizona to lose, that is the last thing I'm going to do. Trust me. Chris Bay has been here. He's been there. He's been in Canada, Japan, you name it. He's been everywhere. You don't think I'm going to try to pull off every little thing that I can do in that ring to pick up a victory? You got me wrong. I'm going in this to win. I'm going to make a statement. I'm going to make impact. See that maybe they have the wrong guy. You know what I mean? Maybe the guy we should have gotten is the guy that is the victor, which is Gino Rivera. Spoiler alert, I'm going to beat Chris Bay. Simple.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Exclusive from Gino Rivera. He's taking out the Bullet Club's Chris Bay. September 28th. Is that the date of the show here in Prescott?
Date is September 28th, Prescott Pro Wrestling in Arizona. Yes, it is.
Nice. Well, it's going to be at a really nice little spot in Prescott Valley. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Sammy, too bad you can't fly in Arizona, man. Come check out an awesome show.
I've been trying to get actually out there, so maybe I will come in to see this. It sounds like a good match. I know Chris, he's a good guy, but I'm very interested to see what goes down with you guys in the main event. Sometimes when two guys get in the ring, it can be a clash of styles. It can be a kind of a mixed bag, but there's always this electricity whenever two guys wrestle in the main event that have never touched before. So I think that's always an exciting matchup. So, I think it's going to.
Don't get me wrong, guys. I definitely respect Chris Bay as a pro wrestler, as a human. I love what he's doing. I love his hard work. I love his positivity. The man is not only a wrestler, but he is a musician like myself. And guys, right now you don't understand that I need this victory more than he does. If he beats me, he goes on, lives his life, jumps on a plane, does another TV show here, goes to Japan, lives in his nice little house in Vegas, goes about his day. But for me, I've got a lot of eyes watching this match. I've got a lot of people betting on Chris Bay, and I've got to prove those guys wrong. I need to beat Chris Bay. There is no other option for me. If I lose this knocks me down, not just one peg. This puts me all the way to the back of the line because all I'll hear is you couldn't do it. You couldn't win the big one. You needed this victory. You needed to beat Chris Bay. And I can't afford to do that. I can't afford to go into training and train my students and say, hey, I lost. I can't afford to go on to the next show. I am a champion in 8 different states, 8 different promotions. I'm a 19-time champion. And the last thing I need to do is walk away a loser. I cannot afford to lose to one of the greatest wrestlers going today, Chris Bay. I cannot afford to lose. And I hope he understands that. Business.
Well, I'm pumped for it, man. And Ryan had actually talked about maybe getting Chris on the show before your guys' show. So I don't know, maybe we could have a little face-to-face on camera before the show.
Say less.
A little pre-showdown.
Absolutely. Say less. I'm there.
Well, sounds good to me, man. But let's rewind. Let's rewind the clock a little bit, Gino. You told us about how you got your start. Guy was passing out flyers, whatever, But going back, have you been a fan since a kid? Who inspired you? We all, Sammy and I are close to the same age, so we all grew up watching different guys. What guys did you look up to? Who inspired you? Who were you trying to, maybe emulate?
Absolutely, guys. Well, I come from an adopted family, and my adopted mom loved wrestling. She loved pro wrestling with all of her heart. Her favorite wrestler was The Undertaker. So growing up in our household, it was an Undertaker family. We were all about Undertaker. I am still an Undertaker fan. And if I could show you the rest of my side, you'd see that. But The Undertaker is the greatest wrestler on earth, bar none. There's nobody better than that man. And I will stand by that.
Have you ever been able to meet him? Have you ever meet and greet, anything?
I met him, and that's a very great story, by the way. I did get to meet The Undertaker. It was in 2018, I believe, the same year I debuted for the WWE. And I was waiting in line, and I'm telling the lady, hold my camera like this. Make sure you get a good close-up. Make sure you get right there, right? And the whole time, Undertaker's behind me like this, waiting. And everybody's like, he's trying to shake your hand. Look behind you. And I'm like, yeah. Make sure you get the phone and get my eyes and make sure I'm looking directly at. And Undertaker's still like this. And I turn around, and he goes, how you doing? And I'm like, mm-hmm. And I turn around and I walk off, and I did not say what I literally stood in line for 2 to 3 hours wanting to say. And that was, you are the reason I am in the industry. My mom loved you, and thank you for your contributions because you are the reason I'm a wrestler today. I said, mm-hmm. I took the picture and I walked away, and I never looked back. And I was so starstruck. And I've been around famous people. I've been on all kinds of famous people, and never once have I gotten starstruck the way I did for The Undertaker. That man was sitting down, and he was still taller than me. He is definitely my idol. The reason I'm in this business. But growing up in a household that loved wrestling, we watched WWF, man, until WCW came in. We flipped channels like everybody else. And the guys that I saw that I loved and emulated were guys like Undertaker, Macho Man, Doink the Clown, Bret Hart. He's still better than Shawn. I don't care what anybody tells me. Just those guys were just Ted DiBiase, Earthquake. I was just fascinated by those people. I started collecting the figures just left and right. I still do to this day. You can see all the bins here. That's full of figures. That closet is full of figures. If I open it, I'm going to drown in figures. But yes, Undertaker is the reason I wanted to get into the business. I met him. I love him still to this day. Wish I could wrestle him.
Yeah, I mean, shit. The Undertaker, it's one of those guys that you never really saw retiring, right? Because his persona, everything about him, you just feel like he's going to go forever. We get older, and our heroes get older, and guys that we love. And as a wrestling fan, my whole life, since I was 4 years old in the 80s. Yeah. And I definitely, I've been around, like musicians and other people, like famous people, but I'm a wrestling fan, diehard at heart. And I think I would be probably the same way with certain wrestlers. With me, it would probably be Hogan or Flair. That'd probably, be the same thing.
I've been around Flair in a hotel. He wasn't very nice to me.
Sammy's shaking his head. Sammy, you don't have a Flair story too, do you?
No comment. No comment.
Right? Well, people can relate. I grew up loving Ric Flair. He was one of the greatest, as you guys all know and feel too. Right. He was very, very, very in his zone. I'm going to put it, and just not pleasant. But as far as the Hulk Hogan, I've always wanted to meet Hulk Hogan. That is another guy that I love too. I collect everything Hulk Hogan do. But I was going to tell you a story about, and I just lost the thought of my head. But gosh, we'll get back to that. But yeah,
it's interesting you said that story about the Undertaker.
That's what I was going to say.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, when people talk about being starstruck, it feels like often those stories are, you're at a party, you're out in public, you're walking down the street, you turn over your shoulder, you kind of see someone, and then you're suddenly kind of stilted because you're not prepared to talk to this person, right?
No.
And I always think it's very interesting because I think almost everyone who's gone to a meet and greet for a wrestling show, it's weird how that still happens even if you're standing in line, sometimes for an hour, to meet a very specific person. You're going to go up there. You have time to think about what you're going to say, what you're going to do. And then you get there and you're like, I don't know what you're going to do. I was with, it was at WrestleMania weekend in Dallas. So that was a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
And one of my good friends, her favorite wrestler of all time was Bret Hart. So it still is. She still wears it, and she's breaking into the business, things like that. But like, she still wears her fandom of being Bret Hart fan, like on her sleeve proudly. And he was going to be there, so she was like, "Oh, I know it's not cool to wait in line. I know it's like to meet wrestlers." But I was like, "But I got, it's him. Like, I got to go meet him."
Yeah.
So I stood with her because she wanted someone to like take a picture of her and all those kinds of things. And I mean, it wasn't like she was thinking about it that day. It was like she was thinking about what she would say to him, like her whole life.
Yeah.
And then still when she gets up there, it's still this visceral moment. And I think part of it is because think about it, if you're Bret Hart, like Bret Hart's just sitting there and he's been doing these for decades, right? He sits there and he's seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And it's not that he's numb to it, it's that he's like, yeah, like I know that I'm someone that people look up to. So it's this weird juxtaposition where you get up there and someone is so nervous that somehow it doesn't help. Sometimes the person you're talking to is just kind of going like, hi, like it puts it all on the person who is least prepared to talk, I guess, because it puts it on the fan to kind of bring whatever they're going to bring. And, I think I would always take fans that show that kind of level of humility to be kind of struck in the moment. I think most people that are in those positions appreciate that kind of sense more, because there's some people that they're just, I've seen guys bring like 2 arms full of like, things to get autographed, and they're just selling stuff. Like that's not a real thing. So I think I would I could tell that, like, and Bret Hart, I say that because Bret took like, it was supposed to be like maybe 30 seconds, but he took like 5-10 minutes, like talk to her and sit down. He signed some stuff. They had a moment, and he didn't have to do that. Like he didn't have to kind of acknowledge where she was in that moment and lean into it. But I think now with social media and the fact that like so many people kind of exploit this business from the fan side of it, that it's nice when you get these moments of real people interaction and they're real fans. Like, this person really loves you because you were a wrestler, because you wrestled years ago, and you just you're spending your hard-earned money, you're waiting in line for hours of the day just to get a chance to talk to me, and you can see it on their face, and I think I know that like conventions are not an exclusive thing to pro wrestling, but I've just never seen it with that kind of level of passion, that kind of that moment that happens when you see these fans interacting with their heroes at these kinds of conventions,
Oh yeah, I've been around guys like Sting. I've been around all kinds of wrestlers, and for me, it just was like, okay, that's Sting. Oh, that's Nakamura. Oh, that's Okada, right?
And you have to, like, it's part of the business that
exactly.
You break in and they tell you got to be cool. Like, these are your peers now.
You are part of the team now. Yeah. So and it's the same thing. But again, going back to that is I've been around all these guys, and it was still for me, it was no biggie. Like Sting, I was like, no biggie. And then Undertaker, you know, it was just frozen. And I'm an outspoken, I am a loud, I am I'm out there. Like I will talk to a bench. Okay. That's how outgoing I am. And in a business where meeting and paying to see your favorite wrestler is not taboo. I have never done this, but I was like, I have to see that guy. I will never see this guy again. Surely enough, this was, I think, when his contract was either up for a few days or weeks or a month. And I guess Vince was like, what the heck is he doing without? He is our guy. Get him back. So he canceled his next two his autograph sessions. And I was a part of the three that they had. Then they started doing the road tours and all that. So, but I was just grateful that I got to see him. It was one of the greatest moments in my life because it's just like I got to meet my hero and he was everything I wanted him to be. I just wish I could have said thank you. You know what I mean? So, but it's totally fine. I did want to share with you guys that Undertaker was right here in New Mexico a few days ago. And someone that works at like a CVS sent me a video of him entering the store and leaving the store. And he's like, Undertaker just walked in my store. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And he's like, just walked. He's here in New Mexico. And I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm busy. You know what I mean? So it was cool that he was here just a few days ago. I wonder what he was doing in the Walgreens here. I don't know. But
yeah, and it's just like it's not some 5 foot something guy walking into a store. It's like an almost 7 foot man walks into the store, always going to get somebody's attention. And you look at him, you're like, oh shit, that's Undertaker.
Yeah. What do you say to him? Man, it's just an awesome feeling that he's happy, he's retired, he's healthier, he doesn't have to get on the road as much. But we have guys like that to look up to as a wrestler, and I look up to him tremendously. I want to hold that same candle and respect as the Undertaker when I'm older. I hope I can live up to that. Not many people can do that. So not one bad word about the Undertaker. If you guys notice, there's not many stories of Undertaker being a horrible person. And I hope that I can live up to that.
I mean, Dave Meltzer or somebody might have a bad story about him. I mean, I'm sure there's something out there, right?
A couple of failed marriages. Undertaker is Undertaker. That's the man.
Well, I think that's a testament to the respect he has in that I don't think there's a person walking the planet that doesn't have, skeletons in their closet or mistakes that they have made. And then when you're in this business, those things will also happen, like not just personally, but in your career. But when you leave a mark that he has, I think people, see out of respect, I think that goes back to respect, to not hold those things against this person because of the respect they have for what he was able to do and give to all of us for so long.
The inside of my boots are purple for the Undertaker. I mean, I literally live this. I have gear that's tribute to the Undertaker. So it's a real, more than a fandom. It's more of just, man, this is my hero. And, it's not I'm out there carrying urns and coming out with purple gloves and mocking him. I'm just paying tribute to my guy that took me out of drugs, gangs, doing horrible things to people. Wrestling was responsible for that.
I am curious, Gino, that, when you bring up the Undertaker, he was someone that maybe inspired you to get into this business. But I think everyone that once they grow into it, they realize I'm not going to be a 7 foot tall, zombie character. Is there anyone now, like, you have this big match coming up with Chris Bay, who is known for that, cruiserweight high flying, that hybrid style that is so competitive in the business these days. Where do you look for inspiration in terms of your own style technique of bringing to your own competition?
Funny that you say that. Guys like Flair, Brian Pillman, Doink the Clown, those are guys that I look to as to how to strategize matches, what I can watch, what I can bring to the ring. And you say, why those guys? I mean, they're not high flyers and stuff like that, but it's just the little things in the ring that they do that I take and apply to my trade and pass on to other people. You know what I mean? I am definitely somebody that is aware of what I can do in that ring, but I am definitely somebody who understands that this ring is also my weapon. I don't have to use a chair. I don't have to use, a light tube or anything. This ring is my weapon, and I can destroy people in that ring, and I can make sure that I can stop a high flyer, and I can high fly myself. I've been doing it for 15 years, but am I going to do the same thing that Chris Bay is going to do? Is that his strategy? Yes, it is his strategy. Am I going to try and match that? No, I'm going to go and make sure that he understands this ring can hurt him just as much as I can. And I'm going to make sure he feels every inch of that ring, from the turnbuckles, to the ring apron, to the post, not just the middle of the ring. Ring awareness is a big thing in wrestling. Chris Bay is aware of that. And there's a very famous and funny clip, not so funny, but scary clip of Chris Bay jumping off the top ropes and it's snapping. He knows exactly what that ring can do to him. Now imagine somebody who needs to win, who has to win, and what they'll do in that ring, with that ring. Kind of scary if you ask me. Chris Bay, I don't know, man. You might want to bring another Bullet Club guy with you.
Uh-oh. Well, I'm going to be ringside, so I'm going to be taking all that in, man.
I want to bring a towel so you can throw it in for him. I'm looking.
I might have a little white towel with me. It'll just be on my shoulder, just in case, right?
I'm a guy that's wrestled Chris Masters, Ken Anderson, Darby Allin, Mark Henry, Kalisto. You know what I mean? Lince Dorado, Mascara Dorito. I've wrestled a lot of big name talent, and right now I look to add to that list Chris Bay. I look to add to that list of guys that have lost. Guys that have been beaten up by me, Gino Rivera. Chris Bay will be added to that list. Mark Henry almost got on that list. Mick Foley almost got on that list. They were smarter than Chris Bay. They didn't accept the match.
Well, we're excited, man. September 28th, Prescott Valley. Prescott Pro Wrestling. Check out Prescott Pro Wrestling for tickets. Gino, I know you're a busy guy. I really appreciate you coming on, giving us some time today, talking about the big match coming up with Chris Bay. I'm looking forward to seeing it live and in person. Gino, let's go ahead and plug your school, man. Any websites, any appearances coming up? Where can our audience find you?
Absolutely. I mean, you can find me in training right now, preparing to whip Chris Bay's butt. While Chris Bay is in the studio and he's making love songs and he's like, I love you, you love. I'm in the ring training. All right. I'm getting ready for one of the biggest matches in my career. While Chris Bay is lounging in a pool with a bunch of women and counting how many chains is around his neck and getting his hair braided, he's not thinking about me. I'm thinking about this man, Chris Bay. And you can find me in Albuquerque, New Mexico at Off the Ropes Pro Wrestling School. You can also find me in the next, I'll be in Denver, Colorado tomorrow at SmackDown. I wonder what I'm going to be doing there. I don't know. Find that out. Then from there, I'll go to Lubbock, Fargo, Prescott, Arizona, where I'll be beating up Chris Bay, because that's what I do. I beat up people. I don't think you understand that, Chris Bay. I'm not Leo Rush. I'm not anybody from Impact. I'm definitely not Tommy Dreamer. You are not going to make an example out of me. I am going to make sure that Scott D'Amore calls me and says, you know what? Chris Bay can't show. I'm taking him out of the match. He forfeits. That's the goal. And I've got a couple of weeks to do that. So you can find me on all of my social media talking about Chris Bay, beating up Chris Bay at Gino Told You So, one word, on all social media platforms. I'm active. You hit me up, you call me, you chat with me, you ask me a question, I'm reacting to it. But Chris Bay, you've been silent, which, I don't know. People say that when you're silent, you're kind of scared. You don't know what to do. You're probably thinking. So enjoy the women, enjoy Vegas, enjoy traveling around the world, enjoy that other Bullet Club boy that holds a card in his mouth, and you guys do whatever you guys do. I'm going to be training for you.
Well, you heard it here, Sammy. I think he gave a prediction, a spoiler. Gino's taking out Chris Bay on September 28th. You heard it here first.
You damn right.
That's
And
a
if
lot
I
of
get
people.
my hands on that jacket, I'm going to rip it. If I get my hands on his glasses, I'm going to break it. His little headband, I'm going to wipe my butt with it. If I get anything Bullet Club to show anybody back in Japan disrespect, that's what I'm going to do. Chris Bay has no idea how bad I need this. You two do. You see it in my face. You hear it in my voice. You understand the tone. You know how high the bar has been set. Chris Bay, if he wins, he's just going to go and jump in another rental car. Me, the eyes are on me. The spotlight's on me. I got to do this. I got to make a name for myself.
September 28th, Gino told you so Rivera. He told you so right here on this show. Sammy, you heard it. Gino Rivera, we'll try to get you guys on before the big show. See, maybe we can have a little showdown. You might get him to back out of the match, man. You never know. I
look forward to it. And knowing him, you'll probably will back out of the stream. So it's no use, but I'll be here.
Well, thank you, Gino. Appreciate you coming on, man. Would love to have you on again. You know, just talk all things wrestling, man. We look forward to the show, and I'm looking forward to you to put a whooping on Chris Bay, September 28th.
Goodbye and good. Yeah, right.
Have a good one, man. Appreciate it, Gino. Thanks, guys. Man. Well, you heard it, Sammy. Gino Rivera is coming for Chris Bay, so I'm excited.
It's going to be one hell of a match. I can't believe I'm a little jealous that you're going to get to see that match live and in person, Tony.
Oh, I'll be taking plenty of pictures and little clips and posting things up on ATW. But, yeah, no, I mean, Gino's pumped, man. He's ready. Chris Bay, I mean, I would definitely say Chris Bay, Mark Cardona, those guys are probably the two, or Matt Cardona. Those guys are two of the biggest in the indie scene right now worldwide, would you say?
I would say that, yeah. No, Matt Cardona, has really carved out a name for himself. But, yeah, Chris Bay, Chris Bay's partner, Ace Austin, I know he's, there's a lot of great talent. I know that PWI just released their top 500, and there's a lot of great talent still in the indie scene that still has yet to break through that ceiling, that glass ceiling that kind of puts you on the radar of people kind of outside the area. I know that AEW has their own television show, and that still people still kind of think of AEW as kind of like a super indie promotion. But I think whenever you have television, you reach the size of the audience that they have. Same with Impact and Ring of Honor with AEW. That there are guys that have that kind of exposure, that are doing everything they can to get on that level, to catch a break, to kind of get to that next level. And Gino has that opportunity if he can, get a good win over Chris Bay. So, but I mean, sky's the limit for Chris Bay too. I think he's definitely one of those guys that people have earmarked as a guy that's going places. It'll be interesting to see in a couple of years where both these guys will be.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should be having Chris on our show here either next week or the week after, talking about this upcoming match. If I can get these guys both to kind of come on and jaw a little bit, that would be entertaining, to say the least. Yeah. But Sammy, I know we got a little bit of time left to chat. And if anyone has noticed, it might be hard. I was at SummerSlam in Detroit.
Oh wow, okay.
Yep,
okay.
Rocking the SummerSlam gear.
Yeah.
Man, I've been to like 5 WrestleManias. This was my first SummerSlam. I know you were at Mania last year in Dallas for the 2-day show. SummerSlam was, I would say, was solid. It was a solid show in person. I think what I'm really looking forward to is what I haven't been to yet. I don't know if you've ever been, Sammy, is a Rumble. I know they just announced the Royal Rumble is going to be in Tampa. I don't really want to go to Florida in January, but
it's weird that you talk about the Rumble. I've been in attendance to 3 Royal Rumbles.
Oh wow!
And it never gets old. I will probably be making a trip down to Florida for the Royal Rumble, because I would argue hands down my favorite event of the year is the Royal Rumble in terms of WWE produced events, and the WrestleMania is obviously number one. And SummerSlam is becoming that same spectacle. They had however many thousand people there in Detroit this year. The same building they had WrestleMania 23, I believe, right?
Yes, so at Ford Field. Yeah, it was at Ford Field.
So when you look at that, and then AEW just did All In Wembley. So whenever you're at a building that has that kind of spectacle, that many fans, there's just a different kind of feeling to it. And the Royal Rumble has become one of those shows where they've been doing the show not just at arenas, but at stadiums now too, where it's got that large crowd. But the fact that there's that signature Royal Rumble event where you have to wait for the next guy and the crowd kind of counts down with it, and you don't know who it's going to be. You want to see who's going on to WrestleMania. There's just a different energy at the Royal Rumble than any other show. So it's going to be very exciting. If you can make it down there, I think that I can't recommend it any higher.
I just don't want to go to Florida, man.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I don't want to go to Tampa Bay.
Well, it's interesting that like Florida and New Orleans and a lot of the more sunny locations, WrestleMania and WWE has been running a lot, because I know that those are locations that people all over the country and sometimes all over the world will put on that list of like, that's a place that I would go visit,
Right. No, I mean, I understand why it's happening in a warmer climate. Obviously in January, you're not going to have it in Detroit, because, it's going to be, 20 below. But I would love for them to have a Rumble either in Vegas or here in Arizona or California, because I can make that jump easier to go there than trying to go to Tampa Bay. But I think I think they've held a lot of Royal Rumbles in Florida.
They have. I know that. I don't know how many stats offhand, but I remember they're watching one where it's like, feels like every other Rumble is in
right.
Florida.
Yeah, it's like they got some kind of exclusive. They got to come back for a Rumble every 5 years or something.
Well, I know that Rumbles are, it's a unique concept that Pat Patterson, but just battle royals in general are a staple of that old school style of wrestling, which I think, whenever I first meet someone that is first getting into wrestling, more often than not, I'll show them a Royal Rumble match, because it's such an easy segue. You get the star power, you get the unpredictability, and it's just an event that I think anybody can kind of get, even if you have no idea what pro wrestling is. We have at Wildkat Sports, our anniversary show is always every November, and we have developed where our anniversary show is always called the Revolution Rumble, which is we have our Revolution Championship, which is kind of our title to kind of exemplify like people on the rise in independent wrestling.
Right.
And whoever wins the Rumble gets a shot at the Revolution title. But it's the same format, whereas opposed to the Battle Royal where people kind of all start in the ring, you have to count down where two guys start, people come in. And I've noticed that a lot more on the indies scene now, that's just almost to the point where it's assumed that that's how the Battle Royal will go. Like I've seen where people even will just say it's a Battle Royal, but they never format it with everybody in the ring all at once. It's almost always formatted with the two guys start and then the music plays and another guy comes in. And there are different people that like to make different little twists on it. Like at our Rumble, for example, we have it where it comes down to two guys instead of one. And when it comes down to the final two, then it resets into an actual match where you have to win.
So nobody's throwing nobody's throwing the last guy over the rope. Then.
Yeah, you throw the last, when it comes down to two, no more throwing over the top rope, and now it comes down, and I always think that's, sometimes I've gotten so used to that, like this past year when it came down to Cody and Gunther, it's interesting, it's a high drama to throw them over the rope, but imagine if that happened, then they went, okay, ring the bell, and then they had a match, but they had to actually wrestle each other. After being in the ring for so long, Gunther was in there from number one all the way to the end. I think he broke the record, right, for longest time.
Yes, Gunther is now the longest reigning intercontinental champion of all time.
Yeah, he's just breaking records left and right. I think he's a short list favorite to win the Royal Rumble next year. I would pencil in, if I was, thinking about things, maybe Seth Rollins versus Gunther at WrestleMania next year. So Gunther wins the Rumble and then faces Seth Rollins. That's my prediction, at least.
It's interesting that you brought those two up. You did mention the PWI list. I would love to go more into this next week for sure. And there's so much that we wanted to talk about. But Gino, he was great, telling us awesome stories. And, he was pumped up about his match. And I'm excited to see it. But we got a lot to dive into next week. PWI released their list, top 10 wrestlers. Number 1, Seth Rollins.
Yeah,
Number 2?
Number 2.
Yep. And then Moxley, number 3. Is there any coincidence that the Shield is rounding out the top 3 wrestlers in the world?
No, man. They came in on top, and they've stayed on top ever since. The Shield, it's amazing how little time there was between the Shield and the Nexus.
Right.
That when they debuted, I remember being so nervous that they were going to fuck it up. That it was just going to be another group that was not going to live up to the hype that they were going to find it. And I mean, now it's 11 years later, and I think with every passing, year, that stable in hindsight is an even bigger deal because of the careers that those three guys would go on to have. It's just, I don't think anyone would have foresaw how big a deal all three of those guys were going to be, and it says something that the viewers and readers picked Seth over Roman Reigns, because I know Roman hasn't spent a lot of time between the ropes over the last year, but he's arguably the top champion, I think, in all the world. So for Seth to be number one, I think is pretty cool.
I mean, I'm a diehard Seth Rollins fan, and I think with his latest iteration, I know at first maybe a lot of people weren't crazy about it. I've been a big fan of Seth every step of the way, going back to Ring of Honor. I mean, Seth, he's not only entertaining, he's ever evolving in the ring, and he's ever evolving his character. I mean, to stay relevant in this industry is, it's got to be one of the toughest things, right? Guys always trying to work on their characters, and you got to evolve, because if you don't evolve, people start forgetting about you. You know what I mean?
Well, I know that when the Shield happened, I think everyone saw that Roman was the guy that they kind of had handpicked to put in there. That came off just because Moxley and Seth were indie named guys, and Roman was the Anoa'i dynasty person that
right.
kind of no one really knew. So that felt like they're giving him the rub. So he's someone that they picture would be a big deal. And when it first was there, you had Dean Ambrose, who was kind of the mouthpiece. He kind of was angled as the leader, even though that did shift later. That I think there was kind of a question mark about Seth as to whether or not the company would really get behind him. Not get behind him, but that he would reach the height that they foresaw these other two guys kind of going. And I don't know if that was because of his personality. He wasn't best on promos at the time. But it's just interesting to think of him as being someone that they thought didn't have a lot of personality. And if you look at him today, I think he's arguably the one with the most personality out of all these guys, which I know rubs a lot of people. Like, I know that Brian Alvarez in particular doesn't like his shtick. Personally, I don't think I like how over his music is, but I don't particularly like the song. I was a big fan of his previous music, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And when they changed it, he did the Messiah thing for a little while, and then they changed this music. And when they changed it, it's so kind of jarring in its tempo that at the time, it's weird to say it now, it felt like he's heel. We need to give him music that the crowd's not into. So it's just weird now in hindsight that they kind of gave him this purposefully kind of non-melodic, even the woes are not in a tempo that begets for people to chant.
Right.
But then people started doing it anyway. So that's a testament to how charismatic and how over he's got, that people have gotten that much into his song, but it's not the song. As opposed to Nakamura's music, for example, which I thought was very, very catchy. I don't think of Seth Rollins' music as catchy, but it became catchy because of him.
Right. Right. And like you said, that's a testament to him. I mean, the guy has honed his craft, and I can't get enough of him. I think he's phenomenal. He's entertaining. I always want to see who he's going to go up next. It's an exciting time right now for the WWE. Big things ahead. We'll dive into it more next week. TKO being the company now, WWE, UFC are now one to become maybe the ultimate combat sports and entertainment company.
Yeah.
I coined that phrase. So, Ari Emanuel, if you're listening, there you go. Your home for the ultimate sports, combat, entertainment. I don't know, something like that.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying.
We'll figure out the details. Yeah.
Sure. But I want to dive into this list next week. I think it's awesome that the Shield is number 1, 2, and 3. Gunther right behind them at number 4. So, and rounding out top 10 with Cody. I'm a huge Cody fan. He definitely belongs in the top. I think he should be in the top 5, in my opinion. But we'll go into this next week. You tell me where you think Cody fits in. All things WWE, all things wrestling. We'll be back next week, Thursday. Sammy Kiss, Tony Twist. Sammy, I know you got to run. We could chat for maybe 30 seconds when we get off here, but thanks for coming on, man. ATW's back. We got some big things, changes coming. Sammy, Tony Twist, we'll see you guys next week, and we are out of here.